Welcome to the Bright Ideas Podcast.
Let's talk about the pros and the cons of the newsletter as a business model. Let's start with the pros. What is so compelling about this as a business model?
Well, I think it's really a resurgence, right? Everybody used to have email lists, right? They didn't call them newsletters, but they used to have email lists in which they sent you. That was pre-blog, that was pre-social media. And then it kind of went away with the advent of social media. Well, first the blogs and then social media. But what people forget is that email is the one platform that allows you to go direct to your recipient as opposed to being on somebody else's sort of ground, right? When you do social media, it's up to those social media sites how they change the algorithms, whether or not you're allowed to have access. I mean, I was thinking this last year before we've seen how quickly platforms can kick anybody off, right? But even before that, they just tweak an algorithm and they can turn your monetization off. From Amazon tweaking an algorithm, and then the next day your business is 50% less profitable or even 100% less profitable. And so the newsletter business to me is one of imperative. If you have any sort of business and you don't have an email list or a newsletter, I think that's probably a mistake because one, you cannot get direct to your consumer, especially if you're in a world like today where most things are locked down. And so to me, it's really important that you can get in that email inbox and nobody else can control your ability to touch your end client. The interesting part about newsletters in particular, I think, is it meets at a crossroads. I mean, there's a piece on there that I wrote about sort of the declining journalism industry as we know it, which I don't think is a surprise for anyone. I saw it back in 2007 when I left journalism because I saw the sort of polarization already happening then and the focus on opinion news as opposed to factual news. And so it didn't sit well with me. So I left journalism and I went to numbers, which were much more quantifiable. And I think today what people are realizing is that the big news sources, first of all, they're all too focused on clickbait. They're all too focused on telling us the most aggressive version of whatever the narrative is in order to suck us in. And they go too wide. They've gotten so big that they can't niche down and add real value in the things that we care about. And so this micro industry is started, which is newsletters. And so I think, Agora Financial has been one of the biggest acquirers and, revenue generators from newsletters. They do about $1 billion a year in their bottom line on financial newsletters. And I think that'll be the future. There's going to be more paid, there's going to be more paywalls, there's going to be more micro, and there's going to be more local newsletters. And we will have to pay content creators for access.
So all of those are very compelling arguments. I would assume that the startup costs are relatively low because really all you need to be able to do is have a computer and sit and write. Am I missing anything?
Nope, super cheap. I think newsletters have some of the best margins out there, 60 to 85% margins across the board, even with teams.
So let's talk about, actually, before we get into monetization, let's talk about some of the cons of newsletters. Are there any?
Yeah, I mean, of course, content is tough. I mean, this in the software business, you can create something once, iterate on it, and sell it continuously. When it comes to a newsletter, you have to continuously produce content. And so each week, I give a newsletter that's completely different from the one the previous week. And so that's infinitely less scalable than Google, which, has the ability as software to just self-replicate and continue to be accessed with the same technology just iterated on. And so that's definitely a downside. And I think the other thing with newsletters is because they're so low of a barrier to entry, a lot of people play the game. And so you end up getting a graveyard of newsletters because everybody starts it since it's really easy to start, and then not very many people continue it over the long term. So I think those are the two hardest part. And maybe third, people don't realize how to monetize these things yet. Most newsletters are under monetized. And I think most newsletters aren't treated like a real business. It's like, ooh, my blog, my newsletter, as opposed to thinking about it as a business. And I've certainly been guilty of that as well.
So great segue to my next question on monetization. So let's talk about that. What are all the ways that you can monetize your newsletter? And talk specifically about what you've done, what you're doing, and what you're planning to do with your own, if you would.
Yeah, well, so I should pull it up here. So I have a a whole blog post that basically walks you. So if you go to contrarianthinking.substack.com and you search, and you ask, you can search wrote a book. If you search wrote a book in there, it'll take you to this newsletter segment, which basically talks about all the monetization channels I have on this newsletter. So I can just pull them up and show them to you. And I share with you the model of how exactly I built up the newsletter from a revenue perspective and the different revenue lines I have. There's 7 revenue lines that are on this newsletter right now. And how I layered them is totally up to you, but I started with info products. So I like these are just an info product would just be a guide you sell online, let's say, or something that you could have some sort of video content online. You create it once, you sell continuously. Not dissimilar to software. It just doesn't age well, right? Software you can keep iterating on. Info content, you have to actually go in and change the whole content in order to change it. So I started with info products, and I think that's a smart way to go. Then I went with a premium membership. And so that's, you pay to actually get some of the content. I actually did that first with another business we have called Unconventional Acquisitions. And so I created an info product for them, which is a course on how to buy and sell small businesses. Since I'm in PE, it's sort of my specialty. And then I did a mastermind, which would be a premium membership that allows for people to interact and engage on that at a very high price point, which allows us to do, $30,000, $50,000, $60,000 a month in sales. And then, a lot of people put on ad or sponsorship revenue. I have only used my own businesses and products to sponsor Contrarian Thinking, but plenty of people put out, ads and get sponsorships. I think for most people, it doesn't make sense because the newsletters are too small to actually get meaningful revenue, but you can. And then we have an affiliate business where if we like and use products, we include affiliate links. You can get revenue off that. We also have ancillary channels. So we get YouTube ad revenue off one of the other Unconventional Acquisitions businesses. And then what we usually do on top of that is create some sort of merch or hard products that we can sell people once they start getting engaged. So for Contrarian Thinking, we have a journal now, and we have some stickers, and I'm working on some shirts and some swag. None of those are going to be huge income producing. It's more of a branding, and it's fun to do, and you can reward your subscribers for doing things for you with some cool branding swag. So those are the revenue lines we have on there now. We could go and create a lot more, but I think when you first start a newsletter, the smartest way to go, in my opinion, is keep your funnel free. So keep some free product open. Allow for people to buy something from you, some small dollar info product item if you can, then layer on those more expensive products, and then layer on the additional revenue streams. And with that, Substack has a great calculator that shows you how much you can make per premium subscriber. And then on my newsletter piece, you can actually see how much, if you have, I think I do an example of 20,000 and 10,000 subscribers, how much each revenue stream is going to give you and why. And I backdoor those numbers for you.
And you're now up to about 100,000 subscribers. Is that right?
That's right.
And you started in January of 2020, roughly 12 months ago. So that's pretty phenomenal growth. What has been the secret to having your subscriber base grow so quickly? And I don't imagine it's probably one thing. It's probably a number of things.
Yeah, that's always the devil's in the details, right? Well, there's another blog post on there actually that talks about my first 10,000 subscribers. And I think that one's good for people to read. So you just, go into Contrarian Thinking and search first 10,000 subscribs. But
we'll put links, folks. We'll put links in the show notes to all these things. So Codie, make sure you send me those links afterwards.
Perfect. We'll do. But the first thing that I did was very tactical. I would love to be one of those people that just builds something and immediately everybody comes running. Unfortunately, that's never been the case. I've had to drag them to start, and then the snowball starts rolling downhill. But when I first started, I sent an invite to maybe my 1,000 contacts that I had. I didn't auto-subscribe anybody, but I reached out to all of them individually and basically said, I'm starting this thing. Here's the why. Here's the what. Here's why I want you to be involved. And if you want to come along for the journey, great. And so the template that I used is actually in that post, but it was pretty sincere. It was like, I want to have a conversation with you all. I can't on a consistent basis. This is a way for us to do it and share ideas. And then as soon as I did that, I would layer on different strategies. Some of the easier ones are just social media outreach. So I use Buffer to schedule social media posts across all the varying platforms. I use Creator Studio for Facebook to schedule Instagram and Facebook posts. And all things would be a flywheel going back to the newsletter. I think the most successful thing to newsletter growth is after you've work hard yourself organically to get your first 2,000-3,000 subscribers. Once you get to your first 2,000 or 3,000 subscribers through just elbow grease, then it's all about cross promotes and getting to other newsletters that are similarly sized and saying, hey, I like what you're doing. Do you like what I'm doing? How about we share what each other's doing to our audience and see if we can't grow together? And that has been really beneficial for me throughout. But there's no doubt about it. If you're not going to use ads for email growth, it is a grind and it takes a while. If you use ads, that's a whole different thing, but then you got to pay something like, $1 to $3 per email subscriber. And that can be tough for people to do if they're just starting out.
Mm-hmm. Are you able to be profitable paying $3 an email subscriber now that you're a year into it at the size you're at?
I don't use ads, and I never have. So, we'd be profitable because our info products are high priced. And we sell, and with our big subscriber base, we sell a certain, enough of them. I think I looked down to our individual subscriber is about $3.14 is about the revenue they give us on an annual basis. I haven't actually figured out the LTV of them yet. We've only been doing this for 12 months. I don't really know how to forecast churn on these types of products. So we'll just have to see as we go. But my whole goal was try to grow something organically and try to grow something that can be profitable without having to juice it up through ad revenue. And it's really because that's not my strength. I don't know anything about using Facebook ads or Instagram ads or Google ads. Lots of people do. And I think eventually we'll add those on top of it. But while we were growing organically, it just didn't feel right or necessary.